The laughter echoed through the polished hallway of Meridian Technologies as Mark Daniels stood frozen, his worn maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the sleek suits and designer dresses surrounding him. The coffee that had spilled across the marble floor pooled around his work boots. Coffee he'd been bringing to his new supervisor on his first day at this prestigious company. The young executives who deliberately stuck out their foot to trip him were now howling with amusement, their voices bouncing off the high ceilings. "Watch where you're going, janitor," one of them sneered, not even bothering to lower his voice. "Some of us actually belong here." Mark's cheeks burned as he knelt to clean the mess, aware of every eye in the lobby watching him. At 42, with calloused hands and premature gray streaking his temples, he knew what they saw. Just another desperate middle-aged man clinging to any job he could find. What they couldn't see was the weight he carried, raising 15-year-old Emma alone since his wife's death 3 years ago, working 2 jobs to keep their modest apartment, and the constant fear that it would never be enough. But what happened next silenced everyone in that marble lobby, because no one expected that the shy teenage girl who had been standing near the elevator, the one with glasses too big for her face and who seemed to shrink into herself, would step forward and kneel beside Mark, helping him clean up the mess. "I've got some napkins," she said quietly, handing them to him with a small, understanding smile. The cruel laughter died instantly, because something in the way the executives exchanged sudden, panicked glances told everyone that this girl wasn't supposed to be ignored. This quiet girl was someone important. But to understand why Mark Daniels found himself cleaning floors at one of the country's most elite tech companies, and why that simple moment of kindness would change everything, we need to go back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, Mark had stood in the small kitchen of their apartment, staring at the final notice in his hand. The manufacturing plant where he'd worked for 17 years had closed without warning, leaving him and hundreds of others unemployed. His savings had stretched as far as they could. Now, with Emma starting her sophomore year at a new school, he was desperate. "Dad, is everything okay?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her dark hair pulled back, worry lines already forming on her young face. She was too perceptive, too aware of their struggles. Mark hated that she had grown up so fast after her mother died. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," he lied, tucking the notice into his pocket. "Just figuring out dinner. How was the first day at Westlake?" Emma's eyes dropped to the floor. "It's different from our old neighborhood. The kids here all have everything. Designer clothes, the newest phones. Someone asked what my father does, and when I said you were between jobs," she trailed off. Mark felt that familiar ache in his chest. They'd moved to this side of town because the schools were better, because he wanted Emma to have opportunities he never had, but he hadn't considered how cruel teenagers could be about social status. "Hey," he said gently, lifting her chin, "never be ashamed of where you come from, Em. Your mom and I taught you that what matters is how you treat people, not what you have." "I know," she whispered. "I just wish Mom was here." "Me too, kiddo. Me too." The next morning, Mark was at the employment agency before they opened. The sympathetic counselor scanned his resume with a grimace. "Manufacturing jobs are scarce right now, Mr. Daniels." "But Meridian Technologies is hiring for their maintenance staff. It's entry-level, but they offer benefits." Mark swallowed his pride. "I'll take anything." 2 weeks later, he reported for his first day at Meridian, a towering glass structure in the heart of downtown. The orientation was brief. He would be responsible for the 14th floor, where the executive offices were located. The pay was less than half what he'd made before, but it was something. What the orientation didn't prepare him for was the culture. Meridian was known for cutting-edge innovation and cutthroat competition. The young executives who strode through the hallways barely acknowledged the maintenance staff. Mark quickly learned to become invisible, to clean around people who talked as though he weren't there. And that's how he first heard about the bullying. It was his third week when he overheard a group of executives laughing about the scholarship charity case, a girl whose father had apparently pulled strings to get her into the company's prestigious internship program despite not having the right background. Mark thought little of it until he saw her one afternoon sitting alone in the company cafeteria, her lunch tray pushed aside, wiping tears from behind her glasses. She couldn't have been much older than Emma. Something in Mark's chest tightened as he watched a group of older interns walk past her table, deliberately knocking her books to the floor. Without thinking, Mark set down his cleaning cart and walked over, bending to help her gather her scattered papers. "You okay?" he asked quietly. The girl looked up, startled that anyone had noticed. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then hesitated. "It's just, they think I don't belong here." Mark handed her a thick notebook labeled Coding Projects. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sarah," she replied, adjusting her glasses. "Sarah Chen." "Well, Sarah Chen, my daughter is about your age, and if someone was treating her this way, I'd want to know about it." "My dad's really busy," she said quickly. "He works all the time. And anyway, I don't want to bother him with this. It would just prove I can't handle things on my own." Mark recognized that look, the fierce independence, the desperate need to prove oneself. Emma had the same determination. "Sometimes being strong means knowing when to ask for help," he said gently. "But until you're ready to do that, how about you eat lunch in the maintenance office? It's not fancy, but it's quiet. No one will bother you there." Sarah's eyes widened with surprise, then gratitude. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "Not at all. I usually eat around 1. Doors always open." What began as a simple offer soon became a daily routine. Sarah would slip into the small maintenance office, bringing her coding work while Mark ate his packed lunch. She was brilliant, working on app development that Mark could barely comprehend, but socially awkward and painfully shy. The other interns, mostly children of executives or board members, had closed ranks against her. "My dad always says I need to work twice as hard because I'm not from a tech family," she explained one day. "He started his company from nothing. He wants me to understand what that's like." Mark nodded. "Your dad sounds like a smart man." "He is," Sarah said with quiet pride. "He just doesn't have much time for anything besides work." The parallel wasn't lost on Mark. Since his wife's death, he'd been so focused on providing for Emma that he sometimes forgot to just be present with her. That night, he helped Emma with her math homework and really listened when she talked about her day. When she mentioned some girls at school who had been excluding her, Mark shared some of Sarah's story, without names. "Of course. Dad, you should tell someone," Emma insisted. "Those interns are being awful to her." "It's complicated, Em. Workplace politics. And Sarah doesn't want to involve her father." Emma rolled her eyes. "Adults always think they have to handle everything alone. It's dumb." Mark laughed, ruffling her hair. "When did you get so wise?" The next day, Mark was bringing coffee to his supervisor when he encountered Sarah in the main lobby, surrounded by the same group of interns who had been tormenting her for weeks. They had taken her laptop and were holding it out of reach, taunting her about the coding project that represented hundreds of hours of her work. "Come on, charity case," one of them jeered. "If you're so smart, figure out how to get it back." Sarah's face was flushed with humiliation as she reached for the laptop, only to have it yanked away again. Executives and employees walked past, some looking uncomfortable, but none intervening. That's when Mark felt something snap inside him. Setting down the coffee cups, he strode across the lobby. "That's enough," he said firmly, stepping between Sarah and her tormentors. "Give her back her property. Now." The interns froze, clearly not expecting interference, especially not from a maintenance worker. The one holding the laptop, a tall young man with an expensive haircut, recovered quickly. "Mind your own business, janitor. This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does," Mark replied, his voice steady. "That laptop belongs to Sarah, and you're going to return it. Then you're going to apologize." The young man laughed incredulously. "Do you have any idea who my father is? He's on the board of directors. I could have you fired with one phone call." Mark didn't flinch. "And do you have any idea what you're doing right now? Stealing property, harassment, creating a hostile work environment, all documented by those security cameras." He pointed to the ceiling. "So make your call. I'll wait." A tense silence fell over the lobby. Other employees had stopped to watch, including several executives. The young man's confidence wavered as he realized he had an audience. With a scoff, he shoved the laptop at Sarah. "Whatever, it's not worth my time anyway." As the group stalked away, Mark turned to Sarah, who was clutching her laptop to her chest, tears brimming in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one's ever stood up for me like that before." "Everyone deserves to be treated with respect," Mark said simply. "You okay?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I should get back to work." As Sarah hurried toward the elevator, Mark bent to pick up the coffee cups he had set down, only to find that someone had kicked them over in the commotion. That's when the young executive stuck out his foot, sending Mark sprawling across the polished floor. And that brings us back to where our story began. Mark on his knees in the lobby, cleaning spilled coffee while being mocked by the very people who had been bullying Sarah. Only now, Sarah was beside him, helping, her small act of courage speaking volumes. What happened next changed everything. The elevator doors at the far end of the lobby slid open, and the crowd parted like a wave. A tall man in an impeccable suit stepped out, his presence commanding immediate attention. The executives who had been laughing seconds before straightened their postures, their faces shifting from amusement to nervous respect. "What's going on here?" the man asked, his voice quiet but carrying across the suddenly silent lobby. Sarah looked up, and to Mark's surprise, her face broke into a genuine smile. "Dad!" The man, who Mark now realized must be Sarah's father, surveyed the scene with sharp eyes, his daughter kneeling on the floor beside a maintenance worker, the spilled coffee, the group of young executives trying to blend into the background. "Sarah?" he questioned, walking forward. "Explain, please." Before she could answer, the young man who had tripped Mark stepped forward, his demeanor completely transformed. "Mr. Chen, sir, we were just helping out with a little accident, nothing to worry about." Mr. Chen, who Mark suddenly recognized as James Chen, the founder and CEO of Meridian Technologies, didn't even acknowledge the young man. His eyes remained fixed on his daughter. Sarah stood, squaring her shoulders. "Dad, these interns have been bullying me for weeks, and just now they took my laptop with all my project work on it." She gestured to Mark. "Mr. Daniels stepped in to help me get it back, and then they tripped him deliberately. He was just bringing coffee to his supervisor." James Chen's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. He turned to the group of interns who were now visibly uncomfortable. "Names," he said simply. One by one, they stammered out their names, several mentioning their father's positions on the board or as executives, clearly hoping this would offer some protection. Chen nodded once, then turned to his assistant who had followed him from the elevator. "Ms. Patel, please escort these individuals to HR. Their internships are terminated, effective immediately, and inform their respective parents that I'll be calling each of them personally this afternoon." The lobby erupted in whispers as the shell-shocked interns were led away. Mark, who had finished cleaning the spill, stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. Chen turned to him. "Mr. Daniels, is it? Would you join me in my office?" It wasn't a request. Mark followed Chen and Sarah to the executive elevator, acutely aware of his maintenance uniform and the stairs following them. Chen's office occupied the entire top floor of the building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. As they entered, he gestured for Mark to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Sarah," Chen said gently, "could you give us a moment? Wait in the conference room, please." After Sarah left, Chen studied Mark for a long moment. "How long have you been working here, Mr. Daniels?" "About 3 weeks, sir." "And in that time, you noticed my daughter was being bullied, while executives who've been here for years saw nothing?" Mark shifted uncomfortably. "I have a daughter about Sarah's age. You start to recognize the signs." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Sarah tells me you've been letting her eat lunch in the maintenance office, away from the other interns." "Yes, sir. She needed a quiet place." "Why did you do that? Get involved in a situation that didn't concern you? Risk your job?" Mark met Chen's gaze directly. "With all due respect, sir, seeing someone being mistreated always concerns me. Your daughter is brilliant and hardworking. She deserves better than what was happening to her." Something in Chen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Tell me about your daughter, Mr. Daniels." Mark was surprised by the question but answered honestly. He told Chen about Emma, about losing his wife to cancer, about the struggle to make ends meet since the factory closed. He didn't intend to share so much, but there was something in Chen's attentive silence that drew out his story. When he finished, Chen leaned back in his chair. "I came to this country with nothing," he said quietly. "Built Meridian from my garage. Everyone said it was impossible, a nobody without connections or an Ivy League degree. But I believed that talent and hard work should matter more than background." His eyes hardened. Somewhere along the way, that vision got lost. "This company has become exactly what I fought against, elitist, exclusive, valuing status over substance." He stood abruptly. "I've been too removed from day-to-day operations, too focused on growth and not enough on culture." "That changes today." He pressed the intercom. "Ms. Patel, please ask Sarah to join us. And contact HR. I want a complete review of our internship program by tomorrow morning." When Sarah entered, her father's expression softened. "Sarah, why didn't you tell me what was happening?" She looked down. "You always say I need to solve my own problems, that nothing worthwhile comes easily." Chen closed his eyes briefly. "I've failed you then. There's a difference between facing challenges and enduring cruelty. I never wanted that for you." He turned to Mark. "Mr. Daniels, I find myself in need of someone who understands what this company was meant to be. Someone who sees people for who they are, not what they have." He paused. "I'm creating a new position, Director of Employee Relations, reporting directly to me. The salary is triple what you're making now, with full benefits and flexible hours to accommodate your daughter's schedule." Mark stared at him, certain he had misheard. "Sir, I don't have qualifications for something like that. You stood up for my daughter when no one else would. You saw her value when others didn't. Those are precisely the qualifications I need." Chen extended his hand. "Will you accept? Tell us in the comments if you've ever stood up for someone who was being mistreated. Was it worth the risk?" Mark's hand trembled slightly as he shook Chen's. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Sarah urged, her eyes bright. "Please." That evening, Mark sat with Emma at their small kitchen table, still processing the day's events. When he told her about his new position, she launched herself into his arms with a squeal of delight. "Dad, this is amazing! You're going to be great at it!" "It's a big change," he admitted. "I'm not sure I'm qualified." Emma pulled back, fixing him with a serious look reminiscent of her mother. "You're the most qualified person I know. You always see the best in people. Remember when you taught me that being kind is more important than being popular? Sounds like that's exactly what Mr. Chen wants for his company." Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, Mark stood at the window of their apartment, looking out at the city lights. He could see the Meridian building in the distance, its top floors still illuminated. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for reminding me what Meridian was supposed to stand for. See you Monday. James Chen." Mark smiled, thinking of what his wife would say if she could see him now. She had always believed in him, even when he doubted himself. Perhaps it was time he started believing too. 6 months later, Meridian Technologies hosted its annual Innovation Gala, a prestigious event attended by tech industry leaders from around the world. The main lobby, where Mark had once knelt cleaning spilled coffee, was transformed with elegant decorations and soft lighting. Mark stood near the entrance, greeting employees as they arrived. His maintenance uniform had been replaced by a tailored suit, a gift from James Chen when Mark had protested he had nothing appropriate to wear to such events. Under Mark's guidance, Meridian had implemented sweeping changes to its corporate culture. The internship program had been restructured to emphasize merit over connections. A mentorship initiative paired experienced employees with newcomers from diverse backgrounds. The maintenance and custodial staff were now included in company events and recognized for their contributions. Nervous? James appeared beside him, looking uncharacteristically relaxed. "A little," Mark admitted. "It's my first gala." "You've earned your place here," James assured him. "The board meeting yesterday, they couldn't argue with the results. Employee satisfaction up 30%, productivity improved, turnover down. You've transformed this company in half a year." Mark shook his head. "You transformed it. I just reminded people of your original vision." Across the room, Sarah and Emma stood together near the dessert table, deep in conversation. The two girls had become fast friends in recent months. Sarah had blossomed under Emma's outgoing influence, while Emma had found confidence in her own intelligence through Sarah's encouragement. Sarah was now mentoring Emma in coding, with Emma already showing remarkable aptitude. As the evening progressed, James took the stage to deliver his keynote address. The crowd fell silent as he surveyed the room. "6 months ago," he began, "I was reminded of a fundamental truth I had somehow forgotten, that character matters more than credentials, that courage is rarer than talent, and that how we treat each other defines who we are." He paused, his gaze finding Mark in the crowd. "Many of you know that we've made significant changes at Meridian recently. What you may not know is that those changes began because one man who had nothing to gain and everything to lose stood up for what was right." James gestured for Mark to join him on stage. Hesitantly, Mark made his way through the murmuring crowd. "Mark Daniels came to Meridian as a maintenance worker. Today, he's one of our most valued executives. Not because of where he came from or what degrees he holds, but because he embodies the principles this company was founded on: integrity, compassion, and the belief that everyone deserves respect." Mark blinked against the sudden moisture in his eyes as the room erupted in applause. He caught sight of Emma in the crowd, her face shining with pride, standing beside Sarah, who was beaming at him. "Mark reminded me of something I once knew but had forgotten, that we build our legacy not through the empires we create, but through the lives we touch. That what matters isn't the position we hold, but the difference we make. Would you have risked your job to stand up for someone being bullied? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Later that night, as the gala wound down, Mark found himself on the rooftop terrace with James, looking out over the city lights. "I never thanked you properly," James said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing my daughter when I didn't. I was so focused on preparing her for a harsh world that I forgot to protect her from unnecessary cruelty." He shook his head. It took a father who had nothing to teach a father who had everything what really matters. Mark thought about his journey, from the desperate man staring at final notices to standing here beside one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. But more importantly, he thought about Emma's face earlier that evening, glowing with confidence and possibility. "We're both just trying to do right by our daughters," Mark said simply. "Different paths, same destination." James nodded, extending his hand. "To second chances." As they shook hands, Mark realized that sometimes the most unexpected turns in life lead us exactly where we need to be. That morning 6 months ago, when he'd stood up for a shy girl being bullied, he couldn't have imagined where that single act of kindness would lead. Not to wealth or status, though those had come unexpectedly, but to purpose. To the knowledge that he was modeling for Emma the values that truly mattered. In the end, perhaps that was the greatest inheritance he could leave her. Not what he had, but who he was. The true measure of wealth, after all, isn't found in bank accounts or corner offices, but in the lives we touch and the difference we make. A truth that both fathers from vastly different worlds had finally come to understand. Where are you watching this from? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And click on the video on the screen to watch the next one with a twist so powerful you'll never forget it.